Testing one. All right, you guys are hopping in here. All right, all right. Maybe you guys are all chomping at the bit. I gotta wait. I gotta wait till people pop in. Let's see. Maybe I'll do this. I'm gonna add something. Yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. Let me share this and add to stage. Yeah. All right. Oops. What am I doing? All right. I'm gonna hide that for now. I'm gonna show you this in a second. I'm gonna walk you through what's been going on. I'm just basically going to give a historic account of the last couple of days. Some crazy things happen. All right, good. Drinking coffee and listening. Thank you, Lucas. Yes. I usually drink coffee when I work in the office. Mitch, you too. Okay. All right, Mom. Here we go. So, ready for some miracles? Just I'm not going to. All right. I'm just going to get to it. So, a couple months ago, I came on here or on Bible every morning. I'm not keeping my mouth shut. It's not keeping my. All right. So a couple months ago, I came on here saying I've got a series of 6 meetings. It was I don't know why that. Here, I'm going to be self-analyzing. I'm going to run out of time. I'm totally going to run out of time. You're going to like keep talking, keep going. All right. So about 6 months ago, or 3 months ago, or so, 4 months ago, I said I got a series of 6 meetings coming up, and I listed them for you. I've got a couple of them on the calendar. This one, this one, this one. Then I have some that I know are going to happen that aren't in the calendar. And this one and this one. And so the first meeting, the first one was a meeting with Doug Wilson, and that was June 12th. And then these other meetings happened, and the meeting with Howard Kazanjian happened, and that was the 5th of the 6 meetings. And the 6th meeting was one with this other producer that hasn't happened yet, and I don't need it to happen yet. It's because these other meetings are spawning further meetings. So the reason I said these 6 meetings are coming up is I just had this feeling like this thing that I'm working on is moving forward. It's not going backwards, right? This thing I've been working on for 6 years, 6 years this month. 6 years ago this month, I first heard the name Solomon Tellurian, 6 years ago. And so I just knew, another milestone. I'll get to the miracles here in a second. And let me repeat a miracle that happened to launch into the story about some other miracles. If you guys recall, it was around December, my lawyer contacted me saying the family, and this is a refresher and brand new for some of you, the family of Solomon Tellurian, who obviously own the rights to their own life story, signed the addendum, right, to get the life story rights. The lawyer says their lawyer agreed, they signed it, or their lawyer agreed to this version of the addendum to the contract. She told me, you and your lawyer need to be in the same room today. You need to sign this in ink together. You and your partner, not my lawyer. My lawyer says to me and my partner, today you have to sign this. My partner and I never see each other, and he was going out of town the next day, blah, blah, blah. He's a super busy guy. And then he looks at his calendar later, a little while later, he says, hey, I'm going to be in your town. It's already on my schedule. My son's playing basketball. And it turns out, and this is a shorthand version, it was already on the school schedule. I didn't know his son went to the school that we were playing. My son and his son played against each other in a basketball game, and they were the leaders of their teams, best players on their teams, and wore the same jersey number. So the day my lawyer told us we had to be together, God had already put it on the schedule that we would be together, right? So that was a miraculous moment. And that miracle was the finalization of my ownership of the story of Solomon Tellurian, right? That was that was important. It was a critical moment. God had already orchestrated it, right? So that's kind of what I'm dealing with. These kinds of things that keep happening. Fast forward to a friend of mine. I got a friend who used to work for Project Veritas. He's a good friend of mine, Christian guy. And so I keep in touch with him. He texted me about 2 months ago, or no, it was in August, about a month ago. almost exactly a month ago, he texted me a number. He goes, I just met this, or he didn't say this. He says, I'm this Armenian guy. You should contact him. He texted me this number. I reach out to the Armenian guy, and he's like, yes, I want to meet you for coffee, but I'm super busy preparing a film festival, and it's the first ever Armenian film festival. So I go to this. I'm like, well, maybe I'll come to one of the events and meet you there. And he's like, sure. He sends me the schedule, and then I forget about it. I literally forget about the film festival. Then, my historian texts me or emails me. He says, hey, are you going to Howard's book signing? So this is after I'd already met with Howard in July. Are you going to Howard's book signing? And I'm like, he's having a book signing? I guarantee it, I'm going. And so I find out that the book signing, unrelated to meeting this Armenian film festival guy, the book signing was one of the events on the calendar for the film festival. Film festival is like a 5-day film festival. They have different events. And that book signing was on the calendar. So these are two unrelated events. My historian found out about it through his bookstore connection, the guy who was supplying books for the book signing. And then, so it turns out I'm going to be meeting this guy already, this film festival guy. I'm going to be meeting him. And so that whole event, the film festival, there's a bunch of miracles that happen there, connections made and reunions and introducing one of my producer friends to Howard, because all of that stuff. So here's the latest miracles. Let's put this up. The excitement for those of us following this project when it hits film, just imagine, right? So, boy, there's so many that just happened in the last couple of days. How do I list them and tell them? This will be my first telling of this series of events. I had my meeting with Doug Wilson, my second meeting on Monday, and it goes perfectly. And so let me share with you Doug comes on. It was like this. It was two of us in it in StreamYard, and I recorded it. It's documented. It will be made available to the public at some point, part of a documentary series or whatever. So I meet with him, and I'm like, you remember me? He's like, of course I remember you. You stood out, but, right? That's always the but. But this thing, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, this thing is huge. This is a huge thing that you're proposing, and it's multiplied tenfold by some of the other things you've said, the vision, blah blah blah. It's huge. And that but is a reflection of the other people in his ministry that read or familiarized themselves with my content. Like, my plate is full, our plate is full, this is really, really like huge, this is bigger than us, blah blah blah. So what I said to Doug is, I anticipated that. I sent you the main thing, right? The thing that's driving everything is the big project, but there's a very elaborate, there's a elaborate strategic schematic that prepares the way for that project. I've got a ton of other projects that lead to that. And so I didn't include that in what I sent you because there's not enough time for you to have read it. I needed to hook him in with the main story and then reveal all the other stuff. And his ears went up and he listened, and I told him. And so his response was, and here's the crazy thing, as I'm explaining things to him, one of the things I said to him is, I've been a post-millennialist for about 10 years, and Doug Wilson's post-millennial, his whole ministry is post-millennial, and they're thriving because post-millennialism really opens up scripture and how you should live. It changes your paradigm. And I said, because I'm been post-millennialist for the last 10 years, as I look at my life and the potential impact I can have on the world with what I do, like if I really am about to make some huge media product that makes waves in the world, to what end? And looking at it and examining it, if postmillennialism is true, then all nations at the end of time, when Jesus returns, all nations at that moment will be Christian nations. And what the obvious implication, if all nations are Christian nations when Jesus returns, then all current nations will either convert to Christianity or go extinct, will go out of existence, right? And I said, am I right about that? He's like, yep, and so I said, well, then what impact I might have with this project, Who's it aimed at? Turkey, right? So I said, if all nations are going to convert to Christianity, then all Muslim nations will convert to Christianity, and one of them has to be first. And Doug, while I was saying this, there's this pause and he's processing. And I'm like, I realized afterwards, God was speaking to him in that silence. He's like thinking and processing. And he goes, Armenia was the first pagan nation to convert to Christianity. I mean, the first Christian nation, but it was a pagan nation because he knows the history. He goes, Armenia was the first pagan nation to convert to Christianity. There will be a first Muslim nation to convert to Christianity. There will be a first Muslim nation to convert to Christianity, and that will be a seminal event. It'll be like a black swan event on the planet. So he gets it. Like he totally processed it. And from that moment, he's like, I'm going to connect you with, we're going to bring you in to speak to the university, to the students. You're going to pitch a class. And here's another thing. And here's the thing that I said, because I got to talk fast, right? This was just a half-hour meeting. I got to talk fast to him. And so here's something I showed him. I'm going to show to you. Let's do it with me small. All right. So these are some people that I've been working with. This is just a small cross section. The historians, experts, and consultants who've been helping me process this project. Soghomon Tehlirian, New York Times. I don't know that this was actually on the cover, but it was certainly reported in the New York Times. So this is the story, right? Armenian genocide survivor assassinates. So these are I've got these people on camera interviewed, and these two people right here, zoom in, the man on the top left and the guy on the bottom left. So the guy on the bottom left, Armin, is my historian. He's the kid. He's a PhD candidate. And this guy on top, Mustafa, is the professor. He's the Middle East Studies professor at Georgetown. He's a Turk, not a Christian. Neither of these guys are Christians, arguably. I mean, Armin is a Christian because he's Armenian, right? He doesn't go to church or whatever. So he would identify as Christian, but maybe not a believer, right? So that's what I'm dealing with here. And this guy is not a Muslim, but he's Turkish. And I told Doug Wilson, I said, these guys, and this guy in particular, Armin, next semester at Georgetown University is teaching the first ever academic class on Soghomon Tehlirian, the person I own the life story rights to. I legally am Soghomon Tehlirian at this point. I am the estate. I have the contract signed, sealed, like in perpetuity. And this friend, my historian, is teaching a class on my character at Georgetown University this spring. I might have accidentally said fall, but this spring. And I told Doug Wilson, I want to teach a parallel class simultaneously this spring at your university, Doug Wilson, using my content. And we will parallel. And I'm going to be a guest in Armin's class at Georgetown. He'll fly me in like in April. And so these are some of the things that I said. This was registering with Doug because he's all about history. He's all about the classics. He's all about the Constitution. He's all about rescuing America from the perils that it's in. And he even said to me, this kind of story will set a fire in the hayloft. All right. And that's what you want. You want a barn burner. This will set a fire in the hayloft so that everybody will gather around and watch the barn burn. And it's a controlled burn because we know it's going to happen. All right. So I just want to share this with you, with you. And that's how the meeting went. And then here comes some more miracles. And I don't know if I'm even going to get to all of them. So I have a call today at 1:30. So keep me in prayer with Doug's right-hand man. There's a guy who's the head of the undergrads. So his New St. Andrews University is, they do masters and PhDs. I think they have undergrad. And so I'm talking with a guy today who's in charge of the undergrads. And every Friday, the entire student body has a meeting where they're all in one place. And I guess they bring guest speakers in, and I'll be the guest speaker for the student body. That's what I have to coordinate today. This guy has to vet me or whatever. And here's something that Doug said. And I don't know if I said this yet to you guys in Bible Every Morning, but one of the things Doug said in that meeting, again, it was like clearly God was speaking to him. Like, you could tell he was stopping, he was processing, and then he would say something. And he said, I have a friend who's a hedge fund manager who probably knows some people that wouldn't mind going toe to toe with Turkey, because rich people want, they have to measure risk, right? Risk reward. I'm going to invest in something, there's always risk. And what's the risk? Well, Turkey will be the number one opponent to this project once they catch wind of it. And he said, I have a hedge fund manager who probably knows some guys who wouldn't mind going toe to toe with Turkey. All right, so that's something he said in the meeting. And after that meeting, let me just say, I was kind of floating. I couldn't get back to work. I was in the middle of my workday. I was like, oh, did this really happen? Did he really say that? All right. So after that, literally within an hour of that conversation, my Project Veritas friend who connected me to the Armenian Film Festival guy, my Project Veritas friend texts me, because I had texted him like, we haven't gotten together. We need to grab coffee. We need to update, fill each other in. He's like, yeah, that'd be great. So he texts me, says, a friend of mine produced a film that's I'm going to a screening of it tonight. You want to join me? I'm like, yes, I'm there. Bought the ticket instantly. And it turns out the film, was screening in a theater. This is the film that was the opening film of the Armenian Film Festival. I wasn't there opening night, and I was like, oh, I missed that film. I would love to have seen it. So this friend of mine has a friend who is a financier of that film. And that's how this is how my Project Veritas friend met the guy he introduced me to. Is he was with his financier friend and meeting the Armenian filmmaker friend. So they're financier friend. And my friend who invited me said, I told my financier friend about you and your project. And he said, and this is what he said, my friend said that his dad kissed Soghomon Tehlirian's finger. So my friend's film financier friend's father kissed Soghomon Tehlirian's finger. It's like, what does that mean? I know what it means. So Soghomon Tehlirian, once he did what he did, he pulled the trigger to kill Talat Pasha. So his finger became something that the Armenians worshiped. They took Soghomon Tehlirian around to all these Armenian events to, he's our hero, the celebrate. And they would line up and they would meet him and they all wanted to kiss his finger and they would go and they'd kiss his finger. So Soghomon Tehlirian had to live this life for a while when he was a celebrity in the Armenian community. So that's one of the connections. So I watched the film with my friend and he had another friend there. And so that's one thing that happened. Then this book that I just showed you, this thing that I just showed you is something that I need to take with me to Idaho, because this is a pitch deck. It's something where I have all the projects that lead up to my main project. I hope you guys are tracking with me. There's multiple projects. There's three TV shows, a music album, and an app, right? That are all included in a package for investors. So I have this book this is taken from is a pitch deck for money from investors. And I'm like, oh, I don't have a copy of this made. I only have my digital copy, and it costs a lot of money because it's about 25 pages long, 24 pages long. And to get this printed, it's a couple $100 just to get one printed. And I'm like, I'm really tight for cash, but I do need to get one made. So my friend says after the movie, he's like, oh, I got a couple of things for you. And but they're at my apartment, and he lived close to the theater. So I run over to the apartment, he hands me a bag, and there's a mutual friend of ours I had hired to help with some stuff. A mutual friend I had hired, and then I fired that guy. But he hands me the bag and he's like, hey, he told me to give these to you because they're yours. It's a hard drive with media, because I hired him to edit some stuff. And then there was a copy of this pitch deck that I had given him, and he was giving it back to me. And I was like, I need one of those, but it's expensive and I don't know, and blah, blah, blah. And here my friend was handing me something that I needed. And God was just giving it to me. He had no idea. He didn't know what was in the bag. He just hands it to me. And so there's a miracle, right? It's like, okay, God, that's another one. And then yesterday, so we went to the movie screening Monday night. The next morning, this guy, Mustafa Aksakal, texts me. He's like, we need to talk. And so I had a phone call with him, and he said, "What's going on?" I go, so a little bit of background. This guy, Mustafa Aksakal, he's a Georgetown professor, right? He's an elite. He's a, he and Armin are known in academic circles, right? They are, especially in this subject matter, and they both got these two extremely renowned history professors. One's name is oh, now's the time, Jay Winter. He's like the foremost authority at Yale on World War One, the foremost historian at Yale University on World War One. He's like in his 80s. He wrote the introduction to the Soghomon-Tehlirian memoir that we're about to get published. There's so many details. And so Mustafa Aksakal says he thinks about me every day. He's like, "What's going on with this thing? What's going on with this thing? This thing's got to happen." And for him to contact me, he says, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Kismet." And I don't know if you know what Kismet means. Like, for me, it's providence, right? God is at work. It's providential. These things happening. And I said, for you to contact me right now is Kismet, because, and I told him this. I said, right before I called him, a couple hours ago, Doug Wilson, I didn't tell him Doug Wilson. I said, I'm meeting with some influential people, and I told him the details. He doesn't know who Doug Wilson is, but I said, a couple hours ago, this guy that I'm telling you about that I met with, that is going to, he emailed me, and it's very simple message. Michael, would you be able to give me a summary to give to investors? Doug Wilson, influential, look him up. The guy has debated atheists, like anybody who knows. Sorry, I time is ticking. Doug Wilson said, would you be able to put a summary together? In other words, a pitch for investors. And there's only one answer to a question like that when it comes out of the blue. It's yes. Now I got to scramble and put the pitch together. Well, I mean, so I have this pitch deck. It's 24 pages. He wants a summary, so I have to boil down this summary to a few pages, or one page. I'll boil it down to one page. And so this is what I have fear about right now, right? The joy and the fear, as I was talking about in Bible Every Morning this morning, this simultaneous joy and fear. It's like, oh, it's happening. It feels like it's happening fast. Like, if these things are happening, that's the way Hollywood is, right? And Hollywood, you can work forever on something, and most overnight successes took 10 years. That's just the fact, right? You hear about overnight successes. It took 10 years for an overnight success to happen. And so I'm the fear is that I'm inadequate, right? The woman with the issue of blood. Why me? Why Gideon? Why Joshua? Why Joseph? Why Peter? And why Moses? Murderer. Why me? Drug addict. So it's joy, right? And fear. It's like, oh, God is doing something. I must tread very carefully. But what is careful? Like, you guys know me. I just exude, and I just rapid fire, try to keep my thoughts together, try to stay on track, get on a tangent, get lost, come back, right? That's me. But the thing is, and this is the thing that every person, when I'm in a position talking to someone influential or sharing about this, the thing that rises to the top, that is the explanation that they give to me. They're like, "You're just sincere. You're just real. You, we just know, or I just know that you're being honest." I told my Islamic history professor, Mustafa Aksakal, yesterday about that miracle, about signing that contract on the same day, the basketball game. I told him that yesterday. I told him about a miracle, and he was like, wow, right? So, this is what's going to be happening with this story. I'm just going to be working with all these secular people telling about miracles, and they're not going to be able to deny them because they're a part of them. They're involved with him. When I said, "You calling me today was not an accident," because I know I felt it. He could feel it, right? And he's been waiting on this for years, since before the pandemic, right? This has been gestating, right? And everybody who's associated with this project is eagerly anticipating it, and it's moving. So pray for me. I feel it. I feel it. In every one of these meetings. I just feel, I was reflecting on this. Um, when I was very young, you guys know the story. I had a vision of working in Hollywood. Essentially, when I was 7 years old, I saw Star Wars. Right, that full circle moment when I met Howard Kazanji, and it's like, oh, I've been I've been anticipating this for a long time. And so from that moment when I was 7 years old, I mean, partly my personality, but also that I felt like, okay, I know what's going to happen. This confidence. So there were times in my life, whether it was friends or relatives or romantic interests, would say, "You're so cocky and arrogant. You're just arrogant. You're so self-absorbed." I had an uncle tell me that, like, "It's just, all you do is thinking about yourself." I'm like, okay, there is the sinful nature. There's that side of it. But whenever somebody would confront me with it, like a friend would say, "Hey, you're just kind of arrogant, cocky," it would catch me off guard. I'm like, and I would process it, and I would go, "I'm not arrogant. I'm just self-confident. I'm just confident." And that was my sincere reaction when I was like 12, 13 years old, when I first heard these. You're not, I'm like, arrogant. I'm just confident. And that I just, I, I plunge into this thing. I launch into this thing. And what does it say? Come boldly before the throne. Come boldly. I could come crawling and begging, but no, I am a king. He is my king. He is the king of kings. And here's a recent epiphany, that phrase, king of kings. We think, oh, yeah, there's a lot of kings out there, and Jesus is the king of all those kings. It's not what that means. He's not the king of those kings out there. He's a king of the kingdom of kings. We are those kings. You and I, queens and kings. He is the king of kings. We tend to think of him as the king. It's like he's pointing out that you are kings. So I walk boldly before his throne because he's called me, and he's in charge of all things. He's got it all in control, and no idea is too big for God. Hello. So why not run with the most crazy harebrained, pipe dream, right? Pipe dream scheme. And everywhere I look, it seems to be unfolding. So just keep praying for me, right? My wife, my family have endured this and suffered, right? It's like they suffer. I went away to Europe for research for, all told, 2 months, and left them behind, right? No father in the house, etc. Right? And so thank you for your prayers, you guys. Thank you. I just want to keep sharing this with you, and I'll keep you updated. I'll keep you updated. And on that note, I'm going to sign off and get back to my Hollywood, my carnal Hollywood job. All right. I just, yeah. Amen. This is our far. Yeah. Hollywood can't do this story. That's why it's happening this way here on This Way Network. Love you, Mom. Love you all. See you tomorrow at Bible Every Morning.